We're going to start this project by building the two stairways that the project requires. The one in my left hand goes from level 2 to level 3. It's just a simple flight of stairs. And the one in my right hand goes from level 1 to 2, and because of limited space, it has a return. But we'll build this in two parts so it still stays relatively the same construction as the first one will do, which is the level 2 to 3 stairs. Now, they may look a little complex, but I don't want you to be intimidated. I've tried to break this down into a series of steps that if you watch the video and pay careful attention to the measurements, you should be successful in creating both of these stairs. But if after you've watched the video you feel like this is something that you do not want to try, you can make level 2 and level 3 without any stairs. And I will talk about the options there. And then you'll just have to explain that if somebody asks how do people get between the levels, that there's an interior elevator or they teleport or something to explain the lack of stairs. So either way, it's your choice, but I hope you at least give the stairs a try. So let's get started. So we start this project with gathering the pieces that we will need. Some of them are out of medium weight chipboard. That's the chipboard that's about 1/16 of an inch thick. Then we have other pieces that are cardstock and decorative paper. So let me talk you through the pieces. And also I will have an accompanying instruction sheet, or cutting sheet I should better say, because it's not going to have instructions, that outlines what pieces you need for each of the steps in the construction. So to start with, if you have a piece of 6x7 medium weight chipboard, you'll be able to cut out all the pieces that you need. We have 4 stair walls that are 2 1/4 by 2 1/2, and the instructions also tell you which direction to cut this for the stiffness of the chipboard. In this case, the stiffness is going up, but that's all in the written cutting instructions. Then we have a piece I'm calling the stair base. It's 3/4 inch by 2 7/8 inch. Then there's the back, which is 3/4 inch by 1 1/2 inch. And the bottom, which is 3/4 inch by 2 1/4 inch. That's all the medium weight chipboard. Then we'll need a piece of decorative paper. This is the same paper that I'm going to use to cover the walls for level 2 and 3. I just selected this, made it, because I wanted kind of a neutral background to show off the pattern paper of all the buildings, which are really the feature of this project. So feel free to use whatever paper of your choice. Then we need a small strip of white cardstock. It's 1/4 inch by 2 inches. And then I'm going to make the steps out of brown craft cardstock and just use some white ink to highlight them with snow, as opposed to on the prototype it had white stairs. I'm going to switch those out for craft. In my version I like that better. You can make your stairs out of steps out of any color you care to. Then we'll also need throughout the project some cardstock joining strips. These are cut 3/4 inch wide, scored down the middle, and have 2 strips of 1/4 inch score tape on each side, or one on each side. Also, for this step you'll need, I painted my edges white, painted some of these pieces white, so I just used gesso for that. And then a punch if you care to make the railings. You can see here I have a snowflake. Hopefully you can see that snowflake punch there. That's the Martha Stewart Aspen snowflake, which was around here, but now it's gone walkabout, so I don't know where it is. Anyway, it's a small scale edge punch, and you can either use that or a decorative scissor edge. That's just an eraser holding this up, or just a plain decorative paper. So it's not necessary to have a special punch, but it's just an option if you have a small scale decorative punch that you'd like to use. And then I think that's about it to get started. So now we're going to create our 4 stair walls. There are 2 steps to this process. The first one is to cut out this wedge here, and then we're going to come back and cut a little bit slit off the top here. So let's do that. Let's first look at the measurements here. We're going to measure over 3/4 of an inch, and then down 3/4 of an inch and mark a point. And then on the bottom right, we'll come up 1/4 inch and mark a point there, and then connect those dots. So let's do that. Here's one of my stair wall pieces. I've got it oriented so the 2 1/4 inch dimension is at the top and 2 1/2 is down the side. I'm just flipping it over so that that writing won't get in our way. So I'm going to use a pen to do this. I would use a pencil normally, but I want to make sure that it shows up on camera for you. So first I'm marking that 3/4 of an inch line that's coming down the side here. I'm going to orient it the other direction and mark down 3/4 of an inch from here to here, and that establishes this first point. And then down here in this bottom right hand corner, I want to measure up 1/4 of an inch. So there's my 1/4 inch tick mark, and I want to join the edge of that tick mark with this intersection here to make my cutting line. So that's our cutting line. Let's cut it out. A nice sharp blade is handy. I'd rather do several passes. Try to keep your blade as perpendicular as possible. Alright, so there's step 1. We don't need this piece, we'll just put it in our trash. And then for step 2, we want to remove a 1/16 of an inch from the top here. And that's just because of how level 3 got constructed to allow for the width of the top of that level. So if you're not good at eyeballing a 1/16 of an inch, this is the width of the chipboard, so just use a scrap piece of chipboard to draw a guideline for yourself there. I'm just using the lines on my craft mat to help me line up here, and then I'm just going to trim that little piece off, and there it is. There's the little 1/16 inch piece. So we'll repeat that 4 times. Well, we'll repeat it 3 times. We want a total of 4. So those will be the 4 stair walls. And then we'll just set them aside and move on to the next step. So the next step is to work on the stair base. And the stair base is the 3/4 by 2 7/8 inch piece. And the first thing that we want to do is make a score line with our craft knife so that it goes about halfway through the chipboard, just enough so it can bend, has a little break to bend on, but not going all the way through. We'll make a 1/2 inch score mark, a score mark a 1/2 inch from the end. So this is the same base, I just don't have any markings on it. So I'll come in here and I'm just going to use my craft mat and line up my ruler 1/2 and an inch from the end here, and then score just depending on how fresh your blade is, but just enough so that I can make that break. Once we've done that on the underside, and the underside is the side that you're bending, has that bend in it, we're going to add some of our joining strips that we've cut to length. So I've got these already cut to length. You would just measure and add 2 on each side, one above the break and one below. So it's just a little 1/2 inch one up here at the top and a longer one below. And since this piece is 3/4 of an inch wide and these strips are, when they're folded, are 3/8 of an inch wide, they should fit very nicely on this piece if you line them up correctly. And then you'll want to burnish them on with your bone folder. So this is the stair, what we call the stair base. The next thing we want to do is some painting. And I like the edges to be painted, and so we're going to it's not very much. I used white, and to do that I just used gesso. I painted the 4 stair walls, both sides, and the little stair base that we just did. And as long as this tape is burnished on well, I come over the edges just a little bit with the paint, get the edges here, and then that takes care of the painting, and let these pieces dry. So that's why I painted them ahead of time, so that we could move right on to the next step in our video. So what we need for this step is 2 of our stair walls. We want to position them so that they mirror each other, and make a couple of marks here. We're going to make one line that's 3/4 of an inch down from the top, and another line that's 1/16 inch, or the width of chipboard, up from the bottom. So I'm just going to line these up on my craft mat, and first make the 3/4 of an inch line, just lightly with pencil. And then the 1/16 inch line down at the bottom. If you're more comfortable using a piece of chipboard to measure this out, by all means do so. So now that we've drawn those two lines, we're ready to attach our stair base. And so let's start with this one, and the stair base is going to come down, and it forms a base, that's the name for it, for putting the folded cardstock steps on here in a minute. So we're going to attach it to the wall like this, and there's two things we want to look at to align. And the first one is that the bottom of the chipboard here on this top platform, the bottom should line up with our pencil edge. And then when we get down here to the end of the stairs, the edge of the chipboard on the stair base should line up with our little 1/16 of an inch line that we drew down here. It does not go all the way to the bottom. And once we get that in place, we'll keep an eye on that up here. I'm just holding my thumb on it while I work on the bottom section. And that edge is going to line up with a 1/16 inch line. And this area that's created here should be parallel. The same distance between at the top and the bottom. Just a little bit off, it's not a catastrophe. So there's one side attached, and we're going to just peel off the tape backing and attach the other side. Again, we line up the bottom of the platform with that line. Mine got up just a little bit too high. Let me adjust that. That's better. That's better. And down here, again, holding back that 1/16 of an inch. Looks like a little sled or slide. Once we get that in place and you check your alignment, everything looks good. Let's get our bone folder in there and burnish on these two sides. Okay, so now we're ready to add the bottom, and I'm just ran a bead of glue under on the inside on the bottom, and also right by that front edge there, and just kind of hold off for a second while that glue just gets a little tacky, and then fit that bottom inside. Just hold it for a few seconds until the glue sets up. Once our glue is set up, we're going to add some score tape to the top of our stair base. Now I'm just using a couple of strips of 1/4 inch. If you have wider score tape, you could of course use that. But I'm just putting a strip up on the top and then coming down the slide and trimming it off at the bottom. And I'm also on the bottom going to come in about 3/4 of an inch or so and add a couple of pieces here. So that we have score tape on the top of the slide, coming down the slide, and then 2 separate little pieces on the bottom. Set that aside for a moment. And just to give a little bit of extra support to the base of the stairs, we're going to add this piece that I call the bottom step. It's about 1/4 of an inch wide and 2 inches long. We want to add a little score tape and then do some scoring. So we'll put a piece of score tape on the back side here. And then we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. And then at 1 3/8 inch. And 1 3/8 is 1 tick mark back from a half on this Martha Stewart board that has the tick marks every 1/8 of an inch. Basically you want 7/8 of an inch in between the 2 score marks. And let's fold that into a little U shape here. This is going to go across the bottom, the front bottom of our steps, and so it's 7/8 of an inch across because the slide part is 3/4 of an inch, plus we have the width of 2 pieces of the chipboard. So now just take a little 1/2 inch piece, something less than 3/4 of an inch of score tape, and put it right in the center there. It's centered in between on the U here. We'll take the score tape backing. Let me move the scoreboard out of the way. We'll take the score tape backing off of the long side here. And we just want to position this at the front of our steps here so that it lines up on one side, comes across the front, and lines up on the other side. That just gives a little extra for the steps to attach to. I thought it helped give them a more finished appearance, so that's why I added that little piece on the front. So now we're ready to make the steps. We've got our, for this, whatever paper you want to make the steps out of, and this is the part there's the prototype. It's going down here. We're going to do this accordion folding here. On this version it was white. I'm going to use Craft for this version, the final version. And let's get out our scoreboard again and do a little scoring. So we want to start at 1 1/2 inch in from the end, and that will be our first score. Our first score is at 1 1/2. And then we're going to keep scoring at 1/4 inch increments until we reach 4 1/2. And that is 13 scores in total. So we started at 1 1/2 with our first one, and then moving on down every 1/4 inch. And that was my 13th score at 4.5 inches. Excuse me. So now we want to accordion fold. And we're going to start at the 1.5 inch side, and our first fold is going to come down. So here's the 1.5 inch, and this first fold is down. And so after that, it's just accordion fold. Take your time, try to keep them, you know, a nice straight set of folds. Just work your way until you get all the way to the end. And you're going to end with a tab that is down, so that you have something that looks like this. I'll give these a good little squish and so that they stay together. Now on the long 1.5 inch side, I want you to take your ruler on the underneath, so I'm working on the inside of this little U here, and make a line that's 3/4 of an inch. So on the underside here, I've made a 3/4 of a line 3/4 of an inch back. So now let's attach our steps. We're going to start at the top, and we want to just remove the score tape backing from just the top platform only. I'm just folding them back a little bit out of the way. And you know this line we just drew on the 1.5 inch side? I want you to line up that line with the edge of the platform here. You can see in the prototype how it extends back behind the stairs. So I'm just going to turn it upside down so I can see that, and keep the stairs out of the way here. Oh, I'm like, why isn't it sticking? Well, my tape backing folded back on itself. Let's try this again. Okay, there we go. So now you can see it's sticking out here 3/4 of an inch. Now, and our steps are just kind of up here in the breeze for now, and that's fine. What we want to, I'm going to talk you through what we're going to do here before we actually do it. So we're going to remove the tape backing from the slide part here, and we'll remove just this little section that we added on the bottom step. And then what we'll do is gently stretch this down, and I'm going to do it here before I remove my tape backing, and you could do this too and just fold them back up. But it's going to end up so that it is in this position. Let's see if I can hold my finger out of the way. So that you have about 3/4 of an inch hanging off of the bottom edge. So that's where we're going to end up in this stage. Alright, so I'm going to just kind of put my steps back together here. I don't want them to get too stretched out until I'm ready to do this attaching. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to remove this tape backing from the slide and remove the tape backing from the little front of the step there. And then we're going to gently stretch this and put that front step right there on the bottom. And then come back here. Just kind of gently go in there. And then in each one of these creases, use your bone folder to get the step attached. So once we have the steps like that, the piece that's at the bottom, what we're going to do is remove this score tape and attach it, kind of wrap it around here. I'm just pre-folding it here before I remove that score tape so I can get it where I want it to go. And then remove the tape backing. Now, one thing I meant to do was to add a little white chalk ink on these stairs for snow, but fortunately I have a little inker, or you could, if you're like me and you forget, you can put the just use a little square of a foam pad to put white chalk ink to act like snow on the steps. So you may be wondering, so why do we have 4 sides, 2 on each side? That's so we can put we'll put the railings on here, and then we'll cover up the railings with another piece to add a finished side. But this is basically the structure of the steps. If you didn't want to have railings, you could just add your decorative paper at this part, and you'd be all ready to go. Although, I'm sorry, we do want to add the little back piece on. So here's our back piece, and it's going to fit inside here right on the edge. And what I like to do is just take some blue tape and make just like a little handle for it. Just so I can, if I need to adjust it, I'll have something to hold on to. So I just fold it in half and have some tabs on it and sticking it down on here. So now I've got like a little handle on this backing. So now I can just add my wet glue. Give that a little squish to let it set up a little bit. And I'm not going to take that blue tape off until it's dry.